tonight on First at 9 this Thursday, the 3rd of July 2025. Touch and go. IMF approved fifth loan tranche to Sri Lanka, waiving penalties after corrective measures were taken regarding reporting errors. Reveals IMF resident representative.
Strengthening tax exemption frameworks and boosting tax compliance, along with enhancing public financial management, are vital steps in ensuring effective fiscal policy.
Smart finance. Financial literacy will empower Sri Lankans to reduce dependence on state welfare. Central Bank Governor asserts. UNDP and JICA confirmed their commitment to supporting future financial literacy initiatives in Sri Lanka. Record revenue. Sri Lanka Customs surpasses 1 trillion rupees in revenue during the first 6 months of 2025, confident of achieving the 2.1 trillion target set for the year. International recognition. Derana wins 2 awards at the Asia Pacific Broadcasting Plus Awards in Singapore, making history as the first Sri Lankan television channel to be awarded at this ceremony.
Cine Campus Open Day. May masa 3 වෙනි දින උදෑසන 9 සිට Cine Campus පරිශ්‍රයේදී.
Enrolling now for the June 2025 intake and complete your degree in 2 years.
Javayata Balayak.
This is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening, you're joining First at 9, brought to you by Sri Lanka's most trusted news source, Derana. I'm Tharindu Mahendra, joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. In your top story this evening, Central Bank Governor Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe says inculcating financial literacy among Sri Lankans will aid them to better manage their resources, thus reducing dependency on government-funded social security programs. He made this comment while attending the launch of the Central Bank's financial literacy curriculum. Also in attendance, representatives of the United Nations Development Programme and the Japan International Cooperation Agency, which are supporting the initiative, reaffirmed their organization's commitment to supporting future financial literacy initiatives in Sri Lanka.
The central bank today unveiled its financial literacy curriculum, videos, and certified trainer in financial literacy program. The project is supported by the United Nations Development Programme, Japan International Cooperation Agency, Institute of Bankers of Sri Lanka, and the University of Kelaniya.
Often, the lack of financial literacy amongst the borrowers, particularly women, contributed their precarious and unsustainable circumstances, including poor financial decisions. Noting the hardships endured by the people, empowering the communities and building their resilience against future shocks has been the cornerstone of the current government's commitment to people. It became very clear that we need multi-pronged solutions to address debt sustainability at the household level as well. We therefore are very pleased to support the efforts led by the central bank in addressing the acute debt-related vulnerabilities through financial literacy programs, management strategies, and livelihood diversification.
We believe that as much as financial literacy of the beneficiaries, borrowers, should be improved, at the same time, proper regulation and supervision of lending institutions is essential to achieve the real financial inclusion. Turning to the current situation in Sri Lanka, we are aware that the Microfinance and Credit Regulatory Authority Bill is currently under review with the intention of introducing proper regulation of lenders. The proper framework to regulate the problematic lender is useful not only to protect the vulnerable borrowers, but also to enhance the growth and expansion of the lenders with proper practices. With these thoughts in mind, we reaffirm our aspiration to further discussing and working closely with the CBSL as well as other stakeholders for further advancements of financial literacy initiatives. We are willing to continue, deepen, and strengthen our engagements with the financial inclusion strategy to trigger and support the growth of the individuals as well as the entire economy.
While numerous institutions, including the central bank, have maintained active roles in promoting financial literacy, experience has demonstrated that fragmented approaches and sporadic interventions are insufficient to catalyze the profound, sustainable behavioral changes that needs for our society to have a better financial literate community. Previous surveys reveal that while many Sri Lankas possesses adequate financial knowledge, significant behavioral gaps persist, evidenced by concerning patterns of over-indebtedness, inadequate budgeting practices, insufficient savings culture, and susceptibility to financial fraud and scams. This reality underscores a crucial truth. Knowledge alone is insufficient. We must cultivate appropriate skills and attitudes that empower Sri Lankans to make prudent, informed, and rational financial decisions. The financial literate citizen transcends the role of the consumer. They become an empowered individual capable of making informed financial decisions, protecting themselves from fraud, planning strategically for the future and entrepreneurship, and ultimately contributing to inclusive economic growth and financial stability. Informed access to financial services enables individuals to manage their resources more effectively, save strategically for the future, and invest in opportunities that enhance their economic prospects. Over time, this reduces dependence on government-funded social civil programs.
යාඩියා ලොව වැඩියෙන්ම අලවිවන ඉලෙක්ට්‍රික් ස්කූටරය අවාන්ස් ඔටෝ වෙතින්.
The International Monetary Fund's Sri Lanka Mission Chief Evan Papayogiou says the IMF Executive Board reviewed a report from the Managing Director regarding Sri Lanka's inadvertent submission of inaccurate data on the ceiling of unpaid government expenditures. However, after the Sri Lankan authorities cooperated transparently and closely with the IMF staff to provide corrected data and implemented several remedial measures, the Executive Board had accepted the Sri Lankan authorities' request for waivers of non-observance related to the issue and approved the disbursement of the fifth tranche under the Extended Fund Facility.
The board completed the fourth review under the Extended Fund Facility for Sri Lanka, and this allows the Sri Lankan authorities to draw $315 million from the IMF, bringing the total so far to about $1.75 billion. This funding is intended to support Sri Lanka's ongoing economic policies and reforms, and it represents a significant milestone in the country's efforts to durably restore macroeconomic stability. The performance under the program in the fourth review has been generally strong, with some implementation risks being addressed. There were two prior actions for this review, and the authorities met both of them. The first was about restoring cost recovery electricity pricing, and the second one was to operationalize the automatic electricity tariff adjustment mechanism. All quantitative targets for the end of March 2025 were met as well. All structural benchmarks due by end of May 2025 were either met or implemented with delay. Looking ahead, the economic outlook for Sri Lanka remains positive. We have observed that inflation in the second quarter of 2025 continues to be below for the central bank inflation target, largely due to electricity and energy prices. But even there is good news in that it's coming back closer to target. Authorities must remain vigilant. The global economic landscape presents substantial challenges, particularly due to uncertainty surrounding global trade policies. Strengthening tax exemption frameworks and boosting tax compliance, along with enhancing public financial management, are vital steps in ensuring effective fiscal policy. There's also a need to further improve the coverage and targeting of social support to the most vulnerable members of society. So in the course of regular staff review of the budget appropriation for this year, an inadvertent underreporting of data for government expenditure arrears was identified. This underreporting on the stock of arrears means that the quantitative performance criterion relating to the stock of government expenditure arrears, which had a ceiling of 0, was missed in the last 3 reviews and gave rise to a breach of the authorities' commitment for the provision of accurate data. And the authorities have undertaken several corrective measures to report and make progress in clearing the existing arrears. The authorities also committed to improve their processes and practices, aided by technical assistance that we will provide. The IMF Executive Board considered all this evidence and approved the authorities' request for a waiver of non-observance of this quantitative performance criteria on arrears that was missed. Let me just say one important thing here. Cost-reflective electricity pricing is one core part of how the utility company and the regulator, PUCSL, see it as appropriate. And this is also adopted by the government. It's also one of the building blocks of the IMF program. So maintaining cost recovery electricity pricing is very important for containing the fiscal risks and supporting long-term economic stability.
There's a sentence in the staff report saying going forward, authorities need to amend previous tax exemption framework commensurate to the economic value they provide. When you're saying previous, is it going to change any taxes already given to companies, or is it just the framework that is in existence?
So granting ad hoc, non-transparent and large tax exemptions in the past has created these significant issues that we have noticed. Obviously on the fiscal and the revenue, which created significant losses in foregone revenue for the government and for the Sri Lankan people, but also it has given rise to corruption vulnerabilities. The reason why we think that the revision of the tax exemption frameworks is key, is a cornerstone, and because the authorities have also committed, is to refrain from granting tax exemptions until the new tax exemption framework is updated to meet best practices. We have structural benchmarks to amend the STP Act by the end of August and the Port City Act by the end of October, as well as the associated regulations. The recommendation is that there shouldn't be any more exemptions under the existing frameworks, and going forward, this should be amended and any new exemption should be given under the new frameworks. And it's important to note that the tax exemption should not be the primary tool for attracting foreign investment. There should be policy continuity and to reduce uncertainty by having a well-defined tax exemption framework that is going to last.
The government of Sri Lanka and Hungarian Export Credit Insurance plc have signed a bilateral agreement in relation to the restructuring of 30 million euros of external debt. The agreement was signed by Finance Secretary Dr. Harishana Surya Peruma on behalf of the Sri Lankan government and Georgi Rehorig and Dr. Adrian Haigi Sinashini on behalf of Hungarian Export Credit Insurance plc. Hungarian Export Credit Insurance plc agreed to provide debt relief by rescheduling outstanding debts following bilateral discussions after the conclusion of the MOU with Sri Lanka's official creditor committee. The Finance Ministry in a statement said the signing of the agreement will pave the way for further developing the deep and long-standing bilateral relationships between Hungary and Sri Lanka.
සිනෙක් කැම්පස් ඕපන් ඩේ මැයි මස 3 වැනි දින උදෑසන 9 සිට සිනෙක් කැම්පස් පරිශ්‍රයේදී.
Apico NextGen. Make the leap to faster sleep.
Recent media reports have raised concerns over unauthorized constructions near Sigiriya, potentially threatening its status as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Addressing the media today, Minister of Buddhasasana, Religious and Cultural Affairs, Professor Hiniduma Sunil Senavi, attributed the issue to mismanagement by the previous government and said a committee has been appointed to address the issue.
Sigiriya, a historical monument located in the Matale district, is a UNESCO-listed World Heritage Site and one of the best preserved examples of ancient urban planning. However, several media reports recently highlighted that unauthorized constructions might be threatening the National Historical Monument, which could end up being delisted by UNESCO. Speaking to Derana, Director General of the Department of Archaeology, Professor Tusita Mendes commented on the controversial construction around Sigiriya.
The UNESCO World Heritage did not inform the Department of Archaeology that Sigiriya could be delisted. If there's a possibility of that, we will be informed first. Therefore, I can clearly say that UNESCO has not informed the department regarding such a move. We have kept unauthorized constructions within 200 to 400 yards of the Sigiriya rock under control. At the moment, there are 52 unauthorized constructions within 200 yards and there is a significant number of constructions within 400 yards, some of which are authorized while others are not. Our main goal is to further protect Sigiriya as a World Heritage Site and continue sustainable tourism, which will help create a good living environment for residents of Sigiriya who rely on the tourism sector.
Minister of Buddhasasana, Religious and Cultural Affairs, Professor Hiniduma Sunil Senavi, also commented on the matter at a government media conference.
The reason why these unauthorized constructions took place is because of how the previous government handled this and the improper procedure by which permits were granted. There are 124 unauthorized constructions and settlements within 200 to 400 yards from the Sigiriya Rock, and we have launched programs to remove them. An inter-institutional committee has been established represented by 15 institutions such as the Department of Archaeology, the Central Cultural Fund and the Urban Development Authority. Through this committee, the people will be informed and the situation will be explained to them while convincing them. The government will implement a standard program to remove these people. The Ministry of Trade, Commerce, Food Security and Cooperative Development has appointed a committee to scrutinize and provide recommendations on the use of BPA in plastic products. BPA or biphenol is a chemical used in production of certain plastics commonly found in consumer products and is associated with a range of detrimental health effects. Bisphenol A is a chemical compound primarily used in the manufacturing of various plastics. However, BPA is banned or restricted in several countries due to its potential health risks, particularly as an endocrine disruptor. The US, Canada, South Korea, India, China and the European Union have restricted or phased it out on food contact materials due to concerns about its potential impact on the immune and nervous systems. A recent research initiative in 2020 measured chemicals in people's bodies in Europe and detected BPA in the urine of 92% of adult participants from 11 European countries. Against this backdrop, the Ministry of Trade, Commerce, Food Security and Cooperative Development has appointed a committee to look into concerns regarding the use of BPA in plastic products and submit a report.
Serving hot rice in plastic lunch boxes and putting hot water in unsuitable plastic bottles can adversely impact one's health. There are many serious findings from around the world about how this can impact children's health. Our market inspections have reported dangerous and serious concerns. We will take a strict decision on this issue within the next 2 months with the assistance of the Consumer Affairs Authority, the Trade Ministry, the Ministry of Industries, the Ministry of Environment and the Ministry of Education. The committee will comprise of experts, industry professionals, manufacturers, environmentalists and anyone who is interested in the matter can reach out to the committee. We will take the strictest decisions that can be taken to ensure the safety of our children within the market based on the report that will be presented in 2 months.
Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya has instructed officials to investigate not only ragging but all forms of violence taking place within the university system and other higher education institutions across Sri Lanka. During a discussion yesterday with members of the National Task Force on the elimination of ragging and campus violence, the Prime Minister emphasized the need to develop practical recommendations and initiate immediate action to curb these issues. The representatives of the task force pointed out several contributing issues to violence in higher education, including a lack of proper relationships between students and staff, toxic student attitudes towards ragging, the misuse of violence as a means to demand respect or assert authority, the stress created by academic pressure, and power dynamics within faculties. During the discussion, the Premier stressed the need for both short-term and long-term strategies, calling for updated legal frameworks and mechanisms to tackle violence along with mindset-changing programs. One person was killed while another was injured in a shooting that occurred in front of the Kandana police station this morning. The survivor was the former private secretary to former Minister Mangala Samaravira. And with that, here's a look at more local news across the island in brief. The final rites of former Minister Gamini Lokuge were conducted today at the Dole Kananta Public Cemetery in Piliandala. He passed away on the 1st of July at the age of 82. Lokuge, who entered politics in 1960, representing the UNP, held ministerial portfolios in several administrations. Meanwhile, 2 unidentified gunmen opened fire at 2 individuals travelling in a vehicle in front of the Kandana police station this morning. Both individuals were injured in the shooting and were admitted to the Ragama Teaching Hospital. One person later succumbed to his injuries, while the other is still receiving treatment. According to police, the survivor, Samira Manahara, the former private secretary to former Minister Mangala Samaravira, was the assailant's target. The deceased was Manahara's brother-in-law. In other local news, former Minister Mervyn Silva and 2 others remanded over charges of attempting to sell government land in Kiribathgoda by fabricating false deeds were released on bail today. The Gampaha High Court granted bail to the former minister, the former deputy chairman of the Kalaniya Pradeshya Sabha Jayantha Cabral and Naveen Veerakorn on cash bonds of 200,000 rupees and 5 personal sureties of 5 million rupees each. The court also imposed overseas travel bans on the defendants. Welcome back to First at 9. Derana bagged 2 awards at the Asia Pacific Broadcasting Plus Awards in Singapore, making history as the first Sri Lankan television channel to be awarded at the ceremony. Derana's Sri Lanka Decides presidential and parliamentary election broadcasts were honoured with the Technology Animation Award for the best graphic animation in Asia. Meanwhile, Derana Macro Entertainment's eTunes was recognised as Asia's best online song production and distribution system with the Audio Streaming and Monitoring System Award. In business news, Customs spokesperson, Additional Director General Sivali Aruggoda revealed Sri Lanka Customs has generated over 1 trillion rupees in revenue so far this year. He further said duties of over 220 billion rupees have been generated through vehicle imports and 4 billion rupees through salt imports, adding that Customs is confident of achieving the 2.1 trillion rupee revenue target set for the year.
We are
happy to announce that Sri Lanka Customs has generated a revenue of over 1 trillion rupees so far this year. Only 6 months of the year have passed. The revenue target set by the government for this year is 2.115 trillion rupees. We believe Sri Lanka Customs will generate revenue this year surpassing that target. Around 105,000 metric tons of salt have been imported so far. By importing salt, we can overcome the salt shortage while also generating around 4 billion rupees in customs revenue. A certain amount of imported salt is still within the port as it was imported after the conclusion of the period given by the government to import salt. The government will make a decision about the matter in the future. Since the government granted permission to import vehicles, over 18,000 vehicles have been imported as of yesterday. We have generated over 220 billion rupees in customs duties for the government. Social media posts are circulating saying that there is a delay in customs clearance of products purchased online. There is no such delay and we have not charged any excess duties. The Colombo Bourse reversed yesterday's gains and once again closed in the red today. The ASBI closed 0.23% down at 18,100.92 as a result of price losses in counters such as Haley's, City Holdings and Colombo Dockyard. A similar behavior was witnessed in the S&P SL20, which closed 0.22% down at 5,347.4, with high net worth and institutional investor participation being observed in Axis Engineering, Hatton National Bank and Pan Asia Banking Corporation. Market turnover was 5.6 billion rupees. The capital goods sector was the top contributor to market turnover, while the banking sector was the second highest contributor. Foreign participation in market activity remained at subdued levels, with foreigners closing as net sellers, offloading shares worth 228 million rupees. And with that, here's a look at the day's foreign exchange rates. In international economic developments, US President Donald Trump said he would place a lower than promised 20% tariff on many Vietnamese exports, cooling tensions with America's 10th largest trading partner. The announcement comes just days before the July 9 deadline, before Trump could ramp up tariffs on most imports. Under the initial tariff proposal in April, US importers of Vietnamese goods would have had to pay a 46% tariff. However, now Vietnamese goods will only face a 20% tariff and transshipments from third countries through Vietnam will face a 40% levy. It is not clear how the new transshipment provision aimed at products largely made in China and then labelled made in Vietnam would be implemented and enforced. The Vietnamese government did not confirm specifics regarding the deal, but said it would commit to providing preferential market access for US goods, including large engine cars. That's all for tonight from First at 9. For the latest developments around the clock, stay constantly in touch with Ada Derana, the Sri Lankan news brand of international excellence. Thank you for joining. Have a great night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit adaderana.lk.